Have you ever noticed how the people who try the hardest to fix everyone else are often the ones quietly falling apart themselves? There's something strange about the way they move through life. On the surface, they seem strong, capable, endlessly patient. But underneath, there's a tension, like they're carrying a storm they never talk about. They jump in when others are drowning, yet they never learn how to swim for themselves. Here's the paradox. Why does someone who gives so much struggle so deeply to receive anything at all? And more importantly, what are they really trying to fix? You notice it early, the way you walk into a room and immediately scan for someone who needs help. It's instinctive, like mirror neurons firing before you even know what's happening. You're drawn to people who are struggling, hurting, lost, not because you're trying to be a hero, but because something in you recognizes the chaos in them. But here's the thing, this instinct didn't come from nowhere. It was built, shaped, trained. You learned long ago that keeping other people together was the only way to feel safe, the only way to stay needed, the only way to avoid being abandoned. And this is where it gets complex. You don't fix people because you think they're weak. You fix them because you know what it feels like to have no one show up for you. You know what it means to cry in silence, to hold everything in because you don't want to be too much, to solve your own problems because no one ever solved them for you. So what do? You turn your childhood survival strategy into your adult personality. You become the listener, the healer, the stabilizer, the one who never falls apart in front of others. Because someone had to be strong, and it ended up being you. But here's what's fascinating. People who try to fix others tend to have what psychologists call anxious-preoccupied attachment, a pattern that forms when love was unpredictable or tied to responsibility. Maybe you were the child who calmed your mother when she cried. Maybe you were the one who kept your household functioning. Maybe you were the emotional anchor before you even understood what emotions were. So now, as an adult, you look for people who feel familiar, people you can care for, rescue, stabilize. Here's the truth. You're not drawn to broken people. You're drawn to familiar wounds. They remind you of home, even if home was chaotic. And this is where it gets even more interesting. Fixers rarely see themselves as valuable unless they're helping someone else. You don't ask, do they treat me well? Instead, you ask, can I help them? Can I make their life better? Will they finally see my worth if I heal them? But the psychology behind this runs deeper. Fixing becomes a form of self-protection. Because if you're busy repairing someone else, you never have to sit with your own pain. Silence becomes dangerous. Stillness becomes uncomfortable. Your mind has been trained to believe, if I am not useful, I will be forgotten. But the truth is, you're not trying to fix others. You're trying to fix the version of you that never got fixed. You see your younger self in people who crumble. You recognize the fear behind their anger, the loneliness behind their detachment, the sadness behind their self-destruction. You rush in because you remember what it felt like when no one rushed in for you. Here's what's fascinating. Fixers often believe they're being selfless, but psychology shows something different. Helping becomes a form of self-regulation. When someone else is in crisis, you know your role. You know what to do. You know how to help. But when you are in crisis, you freeze. You dissociate. You swallow it down and say, "I'm fine." You have clarity for everyone except yourself. Isn't that strange? And then there's the paradox that hurts the most. You give others the compassion you never receive. You comfort people with words no one ever said to you. You show patience you were never shown. You forgive mistakes you were punished for. You're the healer with unhealed wounds, the caretaker who was never taken care of, the guide who never had guidance. And maybe that's the real tragedy. But there's something else. Fixers often attract takers. It's not intentional, it's psychological. When you radiate understanding, empathy, stability, you attract people who crave those things. And some will take. Take your time. Take your energy. Take your empathy. Take your hope until you're drained, emotionally empty, exhausted in a way sleep can't fix. And yet, you keep giving. Why? Because the moment you stop helping, guilt crawls up your spine. You start hearing that old voice. You're selfish. You're abandoning them. You're the bad one. So you keep fixing, even when it breaks you. But here's what's really happening. Trying to fix others gives you the illusion of control, and control feels safer than vulnerability. If you focus on their problems, you never have to face your own. If you hold them together, you don't have to notice the cracks inside you. If you pour enough love into them, maybe they won't leave. Maybe they won't disappoint you. Maybe they'll finally stay. But here's the thing. No matter how much love you give, you cannot heal someone who refuses to heal themselves. You cannot drag someone into their own growth. You cannot save someone who is committed to sinking. And none of that is your fault. Now let's go deeper. Many fixers grew up without emotional attunement. Maybe your parents loved you but didn't understand you. Maybe they provided but didn't nurture. Maybe you were heard but not listened to. So you became hyper-attuned to others, hyper-aware, emotionally sharp. You notice every shift in someone's tone, every pause, every wound they try to hide. You became a psychological detective because understanding others kept you safe. But here's the paradox. You can read everyone except yourself. And this is where it gets heartbreaking. You love people for their potential, not their reality. You hold on to who they could be and ignore who they are. You think your love will pull them into the version of themselves you see. But that's not love. That's emotional labor disguised as hope. Here's what's interesting. Psychologists call this compulsive caregiving, a behavior rooted in early responsibility. You learned that if others were okay, then you were okay. If they were calm, then you were safe. If they were happy, then you did your job. So now, when someone suffers, you feel responsible. You feel like you failed. You take their pain personally. And maybe no one ever told you this, but someone else's healing is not your assignment. You can support, you can guide, you can love, but you cannot live someone else's emotional life for them. Let's talk consequences, the long-term ones. When you spend your life fixing others, you forget what your own needs look like. You become emotionally dehydrated. You stop asking for help because it feels wrong. You lose your identity to roles, the helper, the caretaker, the strong one. And eventually you crack quietly. privately, in the dark, where no one can see. That's usually when you realize something. People have no idea how deeply you feel because you never let them see you bleed. But here's the subtle truth. You don't want to be fixed. You want to be understood, held, seen, chosen without effort, loved without needing to earn it. And maybe no one taught you that you deserve that too. Not because you're useful, not because you're strong, not because you're the fixer, but because you are human. Now here's the turning point. What if fixing others isn't your flaw? What if it's your language, your empathy,